This is Legacy Battle. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and hit that like button on whatever you're listening on. I'm Michael Adams, creator of Legacy Battle. My panelists tonight from the Gridiron Battle Zone, Brian King, the Director of Operations for the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame, Scott Crawford, and as always, we got from Ball State, Paul Havicott here. Our special guest tonight played in Major League Baseball from 1973 to 1987, played with the Astros, Angels, Pirates, Red Sox, Yankees, and Phillies. You can also add in 2 years in Japan in the Pacific League. They call him the Hitman. He's a World Series winner. He's a all-star in Major League Baseball, 28 years coaching experience. We have just the Hitman, Michael Easler here. Michael, thank you so much for coming on.
No problem, Mike. I enjoy it. Love talking baseball. Always have.
Awesome. So tonight we're going to be debating the greatest World Series winner of the 1970s. And if you love World Series, just go back in our archives. We've done 2010s, 2000s, 90s, 80s. We're on the 70s now. As always, we'll have our Q&A for Michael about his career afterwards. But we're going to start tonight out with the 1979 Pittsburgh Pirates.
That's right. I took the 79 Buccos, 98 and 64 that year, managed by Chuck Tanner. Got my Chuck Tanner autographed T-shirt on. You probably can't see it, but
there you go.
Back then, they're playing at good old Three River Stadium. Had a good key trade in the offseason. Well, actually, not in the offseason, but in June of 79, they ended up getting Bill Madlock, Lenny Randall, and Dave Roberts off the Giants. So that ends up, Bill Madlock especially, ends up kind of being a key piece later on. But the reason I went with the Pirates is basically how they gelled as a family. I mean, it might not have been the most overpowering team or maybe even the most talented team, but everybody in the dugout agreed that they were close and treated each other like family. Our own Mike Easler, I found a quote. Let's see if he says this was correct or not, but he said, "We just treated each other like brothers. All of us got along, and if you didn't get along with somebody, Willie Stargell made sure you got along with everybody."
That's right.
That's what Mike said.
That's the truth.
And then Phil Gardner batted 500 during the World Series, said Pop Stargell was the man who made the Pirates a family. He was so well loved and respected by everybody. We had guys from Panama, black players from the hood, white players from the hood. We had all kinds of socioeconomic backgrounds. And I think Willie Stargell's presence and leadership held that all together. And Pops that year, he was 39. Still playing at a high level, but he would nudge you too. I remember reading somewhere where he told Kent DeColvey, "Hey man, you come play first and I'll pitch if you're going to pitch that guy that way." So he'd keep you in line. He kept the team together, but is it the best team? Let you guys decide. I mean, they didn't really overpower you with pitching. They had Bibby, Blyleven, Candelaria. Each had like 12 wins. Candelaria had 14 wins. Madlock led the team with 328 batting average. I mentioned him above in the trade. Dave Parker, one of my all-time favorites, was at 310. Power-wise, you're talking about Willie Stargell with 32 home runs, Dave Parker with 25. But the Pirates get to the World Series that year, and it was sort of like a rematch from it was 70 or 71. It was 71. They played the Orioles, and a few of them remained from that team. Stargell was one of them, Sanguian. I think the Orioles had Jim Palmer, maybe Earl Weaver. There's a couple other ones too, but you had a lot of folklore and sort of baseball magic that season. Just like in the 71 series, a game was affected by the rain, and in 79 it was game one. It was actually postponed by the rain, and in 71 that happened too, where there was a rain delay. And like I said before, Willie Stargell, 39 that year. Oldest player to win the MVP honors for both National League and the World Series. In the World Series, he hit 400 with a record 7 extra base hits and matched Reggie Jackson's record of 25 total bases that was set in 77. During the World Series, unfortunately, Chuck Tanner's mom died morning of Game 5. This was kind of mentioned through telecasts. Howard Cosell brought it up. 1960 World Series hero Bill Mazeroski threw out the first pitch in Game 5. Things looking pretty bleak as the series went on. Game 4, DeColvey took the loss, and the Bucks were down 3-1. We got beat 9-6. But thanks to some magic and perseverance, Pirates took the next 3 games, ended up winning the series in 7. and it became only one of 6 teams in the 20th century to overcome a 3-1 deficit in the World Series. I can't wait to hear what Mike says about this. I know this is going to be the winner because of how magical this team was. I will shut up now.
So Mike, I'm going to come to you here. Some of us on this panel tonight grew up in Pittsburgh, and we always heard the chemistry of this team. They still talk about it today, that there's never been a more tight-knit team. So just your thoughts on that. Was it as great as everyone says? And the whole "we are family" thing. I mean, that was huge in the Berg. So just tell us a little bit about your experience on that 79, being part of that team.
Well, Mike and Paul, the thing about it is people don't understand that it all started with Chuck Tanner. Chuck Tanner had a way of mending people, getting people together, and getting players to complement each other. Meaning, I was a pinch hitter. Matt Alexander was a pinch runner. Kent DeCovey come in and he gets lefties and righties out. And that game 5 you're talking about, I believe Jim Rooker started that game, and he went about 5 or 6 innings, just shut them down, you know. And when it started, we had a way of getting everybody to believe in themselves, number one, and number two, believe in the team. It had to be team orientated, otherwise Willie would get on you hard in the clubhouse. And he was very vocal. I mean, you go out there to lay down and don't want to play one day, you would hear it definitely from from what it started doing. And Dave Parker was on the field leader. He just led by example. The way he played the game, how hard he played the game. And you're talking about that move with Bill Matlock. That was one of the greatest moves that we made. Him and Phil Garner and Tim Foley. Don't forget about Tim Foley. He was the infield captain. You know, he went around and just made sure everybody was on the same wavelength. And Matlock got key hits. People used to, Bill Matlock used to say, he said, I might not be the best third baseman, but you're the best that I got. I mean, the Pirates are the best that they got, you know. So therefore, he always believed himself. We had guys that just really believed themselves, and Chuck Tanner always pat us on the back and made sure we feel good about a win or a loss. And when he came in that game 5, when he lost his mother that night, we had a little team meeting, and he said, look, this is what we got to do. We just got to go out there and play the game. We're supposed to get played. I know we're down 3-1, but it makes no difference. If you believe in yourself and you feel you could win this game, I'm here. My mother's in heaven now. He said, let's go out there and win this whole thing. And doggone if we didn't. Boy, that was a beautiful, beautiful series. And it did not surprise me. Willie Stargell and company, Bill Matlock, Dave Parker. Don't forget about Omar Moreno. He had like 96 bases stolen that year. Yeah. He was just running everywhere. You know, we had good outfielders, Bill Robinson and John Milner, and and just Dave Parker in right center field with Omar Moreno. We had catching. Ed Ott was catching. He was really a moose behind home plate. We had Steve Nicosia, that complimented him. I believe that was Steve Nicosia's rookie year, something like that. So, I mean, everybody just played up into, we had a role. Everybody had a role to play, and Chuck Tanner knew how to put us in the right role in the right way, to win ball games.
I'm sure we're going to have some more questions about the 79 and your time on the Pirates when we get to our Q&A, but let's move to our next team tonight, and that's going to be the 75 Reds.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, 75 Reds, the big red machine of the 70s. I mean, 3 of the 4 series we're going to talk about tonight all went 7 games, so they're all really actually pretty close series. But the big red machine, I mean, they went to the World Series 4 times in the 70s. 6 times in the ALCS, so they're basically the team of the decade, winning, and they won 2 World Series. In 75, they won 108 games, which is the most of teams we're talking about, I guess tied with Baltimore in 1970, but still 108 wins in the regular season. I mean, you look down the lineup, you got Rose, Bench, Perez, Concepcion, Joe Morgan, Foster, Griffey. I mean, how do you match that lineup? I'm surprised they didn't win more World Series with most of those guys in their lineups for several years. But big game 6, obviously, with Fisk hitting that home run. I learned something about that home run the other day, that the cameraman wasn't supposed to be pointing at Carlton Fisk. He was supposed to be following the baseball, and but he messed up and followed Fisk, and that turned out to be that epic Fisk waving the ball, the home run ball. So that ended up being pretty cool. Yeah. But even in game 7, they were down 3-0 in the 6th, and they turned around and won 4-3. So they had a big comeback. And and basically they had three good hitters in the World Series that year. It was Rose, Griffey, and Geronimo. Those are the three best guys, and their starters weren't great, but their bullpen ERA was under 3, so they basically saved it for the bullpen games. You look at the Red Sox, who lost. I mean, the Reds beat up their best pitcher, Rick Wise. They gave him an ERA over 8 in the World Series, and he was the Red Sox best pitcher in the World Series. So, the Reds turned it on. They knew when to hit, and they knew when to get the bullpen in there and shut down those hot Red Sox hitters. So that's my argument for 75.
So Mike, he mentions just a Hall of Fame list here: Joe Morgan, Johnny Bench, Pete Rose. Ken Griffey Sr. is not in the Hall, but I mean, a fantastic player. I mean, my opinion, this is the best hitting team we're talking about tonight. I'm sure you had some experiences with that Big Red Machine. So, how do you get those guys out? And what are your thoughts on that team as a whole?
When I got called up, I used to get called up by the Astros. When I was the Astros, I got called up in like 73, 74, 75, right around the same time. I was basically a rookie then, just trying to make it to the major leagues. But I tell you one thing, when we played Cincinnati, I said, oh my goodness. Johnny Bench behind home plate, Joe Morgan turning double plays, him and Concepcion, Perez at first base, and Griffey in the outfield, along with Geronimo, had one of the greatest arms you can see. Ed Armbrister had that controversial play at home plate. They just had and Pete Rose, all of him. He's always a catalyst and kept everything going on the field. That team was, and it was led by Sparky Anderson. A lot of times people underestimate the manager on these ball clubs. When you got guys of that caliber, that Hall of Fame type caliber, how do you get them to play hard day in and day out and take pride in what they do? And this is where Sparky Anderson came in. They called him, what did they call him? They called him Captain Hook. Captain Hook, I think, because they ran into trouble, he'll get another guy in there. Somebody get in trouble, he'll bring another reliever in there. He was very similar to Chuck Tanner, how he motivated guys, kept guys playing at the highest level. And he had a team where everybody complimented each other. And they had a team full of leaders. All of them get hit. Johnny Bench, Joe Morgan, Pete Rose, Concepcion, Griffey, Geronimo, Perez. I mean, them guys could flat out rake. And George Foster, people underestimate, he had 50-something home runs. I don't know what year it was. It might have been that year, 50-something home runs. They just had some great talent, and they was led by a great manager in Sparky Anderson.
Hey, Paul, let me ask you real quick. They did play the Boston Red Sox. This was during the, what was it, 100 years curse, something like that?
Oh, yeah.
Do you think the curse played into it, Paul?
Don't the curses always play into things? I mean,
there you go.
That's the safest answer. Yes.
That's the safest answer.
Yeah.
There you go. All right, let's move on to the 1973 Athletics.
All right, 73 A's, 94 and 68, first in the AL West. The manager was Dick Williams. The 72 A's were world champions, but I think this year's team was even better. They upgraded the catcher position by bringing in two-time All-Star Ray Fosse. At second base, Dick Green was healthy all year this time. He was injured for much of 72. And Bill North gave them much better range at center field, and he stole 52 bases. Gene Tenaci, Sal Bando, who was fourth in the AL MVP voting that year, and AL MVP Reggie Jackson all had 24 or more homers. Bert Capaneris, he was a fan favorite, 34 stolen bases. Reggie Jackson, he also added 22 stolen bases. So collectively, they had the second most in the league. They also scored the most runs. They had the most sack hits, the most sack flies. So that offense was just really, really great at manufacturing runs. The pitching staff featured not one, not two, but three 20-game winners. You had Kent Holtzman, you had Vada Blue, and Catfish Hunter. Catfish was third in the Cy Young voting that year. And then in the bullpen, you had the great Rolly Fingers. I mean, awesome mustache. He was really coming into his own at that time. He was named to his first All-Star game that year. As a unit, they were ranked second in ERA, second in saves, second in shutouts, and gave up the second fewest hits. The Orioles were first in all of those categories. I mentioned them because in the ALCS, the A's had to face that great Orioles pitching staff, and they did very well. After getting blanked at 6-0 in game one, the A's scored 15 runs over the next 4 games to take that series in 5. In the World Series, they had to face Tom Seaver and the Mets. The A's were down 3-2, but were able to defeat Seaver in game 6, which was also Catfish Hunter's 3rd win of that series. Then won game 7 to bring home the World Series trophy for a 2nd consecutive season. I ended up being the 2nd of 3 consecutive. And it was the first chapter of Reggie Jackson's Mr. October saga as he was building. He batted .310, 6 RBIs, 5 extra base hits, including a homer in game 7, and was named the World Series MVP. So that's the 73 A's.
So, Mike, the 73 A's, they do something that is a lost art today. They could play small ball. We don't see that in baseball very much anymore. What are your thoughts on that? You're a coach, you're a trainer. What's happened to the small ball? And then give us your thoughts on that A's team.
It's very sad that you watch baseball now and you see the way it's played. I've never seen so many guys strike out in key situations in my life. They don't move the runners over. They don't get guys in from third base. I don't very seldom you see the hit and run thrown on, or even the stolen base. You see it every once in a while. Look like they just, we better run and do something. All the guys you name, Falsey and Jackson and Bill North, and Sal Bando, Campaneris, them guys are baseball players. And I'm talking about real baseball players. That's how I learned the game, watching them guys play. I was in the minor league from 69 to 70. I stayed in the minor leagues 10 years, actually, before I got to the major leagues. And that's the kind of players I watched and had to, imitate when I got to the big leagues. So that was my example. So I knew no other way. When I got to Pirates, when I had to get a guy over, I sacrificed myself and just pulled the ball to the right side. When a guy at third base, I choke up and I make sure I make contact, get the guy from third base. All the players you named, them guys did that. That's the way they played the game of baseball. And that starting staff, as you say, Holtzman, Vita Blue, Catfish Rod, and in the bullpen, Roddy Fingers, it was bullpen starting pitcher. And starting pitching, you had to pull them out the game. Right now, they get 5 and fly. They get 6 innings. It's like, oh, my job is over. Back then, them guys pitched until they could fall out. They had no pitch count. These guys came in there and tried to win that ball game. You had to pull the ball out their hand in the 7th and 8th inning to get them out the game. Them guys were, I say real ball players. I'm talking about they played the game right, and again, a great manager in Dick Williams. And if you notice, all the teams that win, they really have a good, smart, hard-nosed manager, and that was Dick Williams. And with that team back then, it didn't surprise me. I watched the games, and I said, that's the way you play baseball, and I just loved it with a passion. They had 1 or 2 home run hitters on each team. All the rest of the guys were manufactured runs. They steal a base, get them over, get them in. Hit and run, move guys, da-da-da. It's a lost art now. It's very sad because these guys are talented. They're able to do it, but, now they just don't play the game that way. It's too much analytics. Hit the ball in the air, tilt your back shoulder, try to lift the ball, stuff like that. And it's terrible. It's terrible. But, the game is, these guys are very talented. These guys get the ball a long way. I understand that, but small ball is gone. And all the teams you're naming, they all play the game the right way.
Scott, Brian mentioned Mr. October, Reggie Jackson. In the last 40 years, has anyone had playoff performances like him, in your opinion?
No, he's Mr. October, right? You look at some pitcher-wise, Mariano Rivera, but obviously pitching over the hitting. But top of my head, Reggie got a nickname for a reason, and he definitely liked his nickname because he was pretty high on himself, and he could back it up.
Yes, he could.
2 came to my mind. That was Mr. November right here, Derek Jeter, and then Baumgartner. If we're going to talk pitchers, man, that guy's lights out in the World Series. But let's move to our final team tonight. And that's going to be the 1970 Orioles, and I'm going to start this out with a quote from manager Earl Weaver. A manager's job is simple. For 162 games, you try not to screw up. And that smart stuff that your organization did last December, don't screw it up. So just Very good words there from Hall of Fame manager, I might add, Earl Weaver. So let's talk about these Orioles. The record 108-54, so that 108 ties the high tonight for the wins. And this is a team that I really liked because they lost the World Series the year before to the '69 Miracle Mets, and they were supposed to win that series, and that could have really deflated them a lot coming into 1970. But they just went out there and tore it up. So they in the playoffs, they tore it up too. They had the best playoff record tonight. Twins swept them 3-0. Then they play the Reds in the World Series 4-1. So they only lost one game in that playoffs. So I know that we always say that pitching wins championships. So the Orioles, they're also throwing 3 20-game winners, led by the best pitcher tonight that we're talking about on any team, and that's Jim Palmer, at least in my opinion. But 3.15 team ERA, that's the best tonight. Strikeouts, 941 as a team. That is best tonight. And ironically, I didn't think it'd be accurate, but the Pirates were second tonight in strikeouts by their pitchers. And then we got walks. They have the lowest amount walk total tonight, the Orioles pitching staff. And that 517 earned runs, best tonight. So I have the best pitching staff. Pitching wins championships. But I'll just mention a little bit about the hitting here real quick. They do have the most home runs of all the teams tonight. They weren't so great in all the other hitting statistics tonight, but they did have the most home runs. And every person in their starting lineup had 10 or more homers, except for shortstop Mark Bellinger, who he was an 8-time Gold Glover. Back in the 70s, shortstops didn't have to hit. They just had to field. So a lot different game back then. Some big names on this team, though. Davey Johnson, went on to coach the Mets. Brooks Robinson, Hall of Famer. Frank Robinson, Hall of Famer. We just look at fielding, 117 errors in the field. That's the best of all the teams we're talking about tonight. And then just that playoff run, they scored 60 runs in 8 games in the playoffs. That's an average of 7.5 runs a game in the playoffs. That's incredible. So I come back to you here, Mike. Pitching wins championships. Palmer is just a fantastic pitcher. When you're going up against a staff like that, and Brian had one as well. It had 3 20-game winners in a short series. What are you trying to do just to survive and push that series on when you're facing pitching like that?
Willie Starr used to say that when he faced the Dodgers staff, the old Dodgers staff with Koufax, them guys over there. He said, Mike, if you go into a series with a scheme like that, you hope to come out there with 2 or 3 hits, if any. He said, it's hard to get runs. It's hard to manufacture runs. All you do is hope and pray that they have a bad game. And that's all you can do, wait for the mistakes. Hope and pray that they have a bad game and they make mistakes. And if you look at again, that team had a great leader and a Hall of Fame manager in Earl Weaver. Earl Weaver knew how to control the game, control the umpires. He knew his pitching staff. He didn't let them go too long. He knew when to take them out and put them in, how to use his bullpen. And, you talk about that lineup, with Brooks Robinson, Frank Robinson. I think Boog Powell was on that team too, Boog Powell. They just had a great ball club and they could pick it. They didn't make a lot of errors. And they went about the game the same way. They played the game the right way, did the small things to win ball games. And they had a great, starting staff, 3, all-star pitchers. And it's just hard to beat guys like that. Matter of fact, the next year they went back to the World Series. And that's when the Pirates beat them in 71, I believe. And they still had that same great team. Well, the Pirates found a way to beat them in 71. So, great teams have great pitching. They got great defense, and they got a good manager that knows how to manipulate each guy and know how to put them, where to put them, when to put them in, when to take them out.
So let's move into our vote tonight. Can't vote for your own as usual. And I'm going to start out the vote tonight. I don't vote first often, but Paul, I grew up in Pittsburgh. I loved the Pirates, and I do think, like, chemistry-wise, if I was voting on chemistry tonight, it's them. They made it was a special run. But I went chemistry wise when I voted for the Marlins one year, so I'm gonna switch that up this time.
Man, I'll tell you what, this
Yeah.
guy.
So
It's like
between the
Kevin Adams
Reds,
is here tonight.
between the Reds and the A's, I like the Reds a little better. Big Red Machine, I just think they hit a little better. They might not. Yeah. I'm just going with the Reds. That's my pick. So, Paul, go ahead.
Your vote was almost as long as your long-winded Kevin Adams argument for your crappy Orioles team. Number one, the Orioles would have lost to the Pirates because they did lose the Pirates in 71, so they're not the best team. Stats schmats for all your 6 hours worth of topic there. I'm going, since I can't go with my own, I'll go with Scott's Red Sox because yeah,
Just the Reds. Just the Reds.
Or the Reds. I'm sorry, the Reds, because they had that Fisk moment. The Fisk. Oh, that Fisk moment. That was such a great moment.
All right. And by the way, I was about 45 seconds less than you on my argument, but
Oh,
Let's
it seemed
move to
like
Brian.
2 hours longer.
Okay. This is actually kind of tough, when you start weighing different things. It's like each one of these teams has different strengths. I mean, you have the Red Machine there, the offense, and then you have the great pitching staff and fielding of the Orioles, and then the Pirates with the chemistry and everything. So it is actually really tough when you start laying it out. But to me, I think that the Orioles have the pitching and the fielding, and they had some bats there too that could get it done. So I think they got more strengths than the other ones. I'm going to go with the Orioles.
Okay, Scott.
All right. Well, I might just have to agree with Brian here for two reasons. That's the only series that didn't go 7 games. Orioles won it in 5, and all those stats you did throw at us about pitching. I mean, they had the best pitching in all of it, and pitching and defense win baseball games and win the World Series. So I'm going 70 Orioles.
Okay, Mike, we come to you. You can pick any team you want.
Well, I got to pick the Buccos. I got to pick the Buccos. That's the team
Finally.
I know. That's the team I'm a
Thank
part
God.
of. And goodness gracious, we just
guy.
played the game the right way. We played hard. We came to play. We had fun. We enjoyed the game. It didn't make a difference what the score was. We always felt we could win. We had a good bullpen. And if you remember, in the playoffs, we played against Cincinnati. I think we shut them down in 3 games, I believe. And Chuck Tanner kind of, switched things around. He pitched Kit to Colby like in the 7th or 8th inning. Then he came in and had Don Robinson come and close the game out a couple of times. So Tanner knew how to manipulate his pieces and how to use his, like a chess game. And plus I was part of that. He pinch hit me in the game. I pinch hit a couple of times. And one day I had a right-hander. One game we had a right-hander. I believe that Sunday game when we came back the 4th game. 5th game, and he pinch hit Manny Sanguin. He got a big hit to right field to drive in the run instead of going with me, conventional left being right and right being left. He brought in the veteran Manny Sanguin. He got a big hit to right field. So it's just like, and I was part of that club, and I can experience it. I can still taste it in my mouth, and I just have to go with the 79 Pirates.
Plus, some of those other teams had a theme song, right, Mike? You had the Sister
We
Sledge.
Are Family.
We Are Family. Mike, what was the Orioles 1970 theme song?
I don't know.
What was it?
Was it?
No, it was nothing.
No.
The answer is they had no theme song.
So that's 2 votes for the Reds tonight, 2 votes for the Orioles, 1 for the Pirates. So we got end the show in a tie. It's been a long time since that. But let's move into our Q&A, and we're gonna go Scott, Brian, Paul, and then me.
All right, Michael. A month or so ago, we were talking about third basemen and maybe who's the best of the whichever generation we were talking about. I guess the recent generation, and you played with Wade Boggs. How good was Wade Boggs on both sides of the ball? We know he could hit, but what about his defense too? What do you think about Wade Boggs?
People don't realize when I joined the Red Sox in 84. I joined the Red Sox in 84, and I heard about his bat, but I really never heard too much about his fielding. And he worked hard in batting cage. I mean, I love to watch that man hit. I just loved it. And people don't realize he had more power than people think he does. He could hit 25 home runs every year if he wanted to. But his goal was to win batting titles and get his, 200 hits every year. But every game before the game, we had to be on the field like 4:15 for batting practice. He might get on the field at 3:30, and just take ground balls by himself. That's all he did is took ground balls, turning double plays, coming in on balls. He turned out to be a really, really good infielder. I mean, he might have won a couple of gold gloves because when he first came up, he wasn't that good of third baseman. But I saw that man work at it every single game, almost home game that we were home, and he made himself into a Hall of Fame ball player.
So, Mike, during your playing days in Major League Baseball, like, basically the 70s and the 80s, the percentage of black players on rosters was at its highest. It was at about 18 to 19%. Since then, that percentage has declined to about 7%. So you've been around the game for many decades. What do you believe are the leading reasons for this trend?
Well, I think kids are being led in a different direction. I think they're playing more football, and trying to get scholarships to football, to college, and they're playing basketball. They're just being led away from baseball. And I get to work with a lot of kids, during my years, being a coach, and the talent's there. They're just not playing the game the way they used to. They're the video games, whatever they be doing on their off time, and they play to a certain level. Then they get to high school. It seems like a lot of black players just don't want to put the time in. I don't know if it's done with the family structure or what's happening at home with the fathers and everything like that, but there's a lot of great black ball players out here. It's just a matter of them just keep playing the game and hopefully go to college, junior college, if they don't get signed out of high school, and regular college, and just play the game. They're just not playing the game the way they used to. I think they're going more for football and basketball.
Mike, you're a good hitter. You were a good hitter. You're a hitting coach. So I want to know, and a lot of people probably want to know, what are the most common reasons for a slump, and how do you recommend people get out of slumps?
Well, that's a good idea. I mean, that's a good question. Slumps come from when you get your timing is off. It's mostly timing more than anything. I don't like to criticize coaches, but a lot of coaches really do not know what they're looking for in a hitter and what a hitter needs to do to stay consistent. To me, you have to start with the balance. Most of these hitters aren't balanced from the feet, from the waist up, from the feet up. Everything starts with your base. They do not have good foundation when they're hitting. And their bat sometimes is wrapped around their head, so the ball, it takes a long time to get around the ball. And the projection of the bat, everything you see is this way. Is this way, going up towards the ball instead of down through the ball. See, but you can't do any of that unless your foundation and your base is fine. So there should be drills. I have drills that I do with hitters to make sure they stay consistently on their legs, doing the thing with their lower half, and it makes their path to the ball and through the ball much easier. And I really work middle to outside, using the whole field. It's like they talk about Aaron Judge, when he gets hot, he hits the ball to the right side of the field and uses short porch out there in right field. But it seems like hitters get in slumps when they get into the pull mode. Look at Joey Gallo. Everything is this way, pulling off the ball instead of going to the ball, and through the ball. And if all the great hitters that you see that's having great years, they're using the whole field, hitting the ball from gap to gap. And a lot of them don't even know how they're breaking balls. I mean, it's funny. I watch the games nowadays, and they're swinging over the top of breaking ball. The way you hit a break ball, you got it inside out. You got to stay inside the ball to hit it the other way, because the ball is spinning already. So if you go to the top of it, you're going to roll over it. So you got to catch the inside of it and serve it the other way, inside out of the other way. You look at Tony Gwynn, Rod Carew, all the great Don Mattingly. I can go on and on. All the great hitters, Dave Parkers, all of them to win batting titles. Miguel Cabreras. I can go on and on. All of them use the right field, center field. They pull when the pitcher makes a mistake, a hanging breaking ball. Bam. But if they don't stay every day with drills, working on up the middle, opposite field, up the middle, opposite field, they're going to get in a slump because pitchers nowadays, they're throwing hard as hell. They're bringing it up there. So they pow, they rush you here, and then they get you out of the way. Then you're looking for that fastball. I call it cheating. They cheat for that fastball, so they're opening their backside up, and that leaves the outside corner vulnerable. That's why they can't hit that slider low and away. But I don't think they know how to hit, the sliders or the breaking ball. And a lot of them don't know how to hit the ball off the field with authority. They might punch it over there, get lucky and hit one over there. But it's not like they do it at will when they want to. Most of the hitters on great teams, on good teams, all the guys you named on them, the old team, they use the whole field, the whole field. They hit for average and they hit for power. Nowadays, if they hit for power, they're satisfied. And they're paying them to be mediocre. And that's the sad part of the game.
So you've been a part of the biggest rivalry on both sides in baseball, which is Red Sox Yankees. 1986, the Sox traded you to the Yankees for Don Baylor, great player, Don Baylor. So as I mentioned, that's like the biggest rivalry in baseball. So what were your thoughts when you found out you were being traded to the Yankees? And do the fans differ at all in how they act with that rivalry, in your opinion?
Okay, number one question. I was happy to go to the Yankees. I needed to change. I wanted to change. And I couldn't think of a better team to go to than the Yankees, because I loved going into Yankee Stadium as a Red Sox to play the game. Yes, there's a little electricity in the air, and there's a little quiet hatred for each other. But that's baseball. That's the way you get up for a game. I mean, that was good. It gets your adrenaline flowing. But to end my career in a Yankee uniform, to me, that was an honor to my whole career, because I spent 10 years trying to make it. I stayed, 10 plus years in the major leagues. And to end my career in the United States with the Yankees, of the great hitters, the great ball club, all the championships they had, all the legends that played in that ballpark, I was part of that legend, being a left-handed hitter in Yankee Stadium. I just wasn't a pull hitter, so I didn't really fit the Yankee Stadium type left-handed hitter they were looking for, but I still hit 300 when I got there because I knew how to hit. And I used the whole field. I stuck with my plan, staying up the middle off the field. My first month there, I tried to pull the ball. I tried to do it, but that's not me. So I had to go back to my inside-out swing, and see, Fenway Park was made for my swing. And that's why I had that great year in 1984, because I got a chance to hit balls off the wall and over the wall, and I had the power to do it opposite the field. That's the best thing happened to me when I got traded there. But when I got to the Yankees, I just could flat out hit there. I didn't care what they threw, who they threw, what stadium. But to end up in Yankees, in the Yankee uniform, to me, that was an honor to my career.
One more each, same order, guys.
All right, Michael. Mike, you spent your last 2 years in Japan, and had some good years. Your 2 years were good there. Tell us about an experience over in Japan, and also what did you see as the major difference between playing Major League Baseball compared to over in Japan?
Japanese baseball is very fundamentally sound. They make sure you know how to bunt, you know how to take a lead at bases, you know how to run the bases, and you better play good defense or you won't be out there. They're big in the fundamentals, boy. Just turning the double play, backing up the outfielders, hitting the cutoff man, just playing the game the right way. And some of the athletes weren't as big as strong as American athletes, but they played a good brand of baseball. I mean, I truly enjoyed it. And the thing I learned over there was I learned how to, how can you say, pay attention to the small things, as far as hitting, as far as fielding, as far as the way they went about the game. They didn't have as much fun as we did. It was so serious over there. That a lot of times they weren't having fun, and I brought fun when I was over there. I was a veteran, and I had my years in the States, and I could hit in my sleep by then. I knew I could hit. I didn't care what they threw, and they had good arms over there. People don't realize Ohtani's and some of these pitchers that came over here, them guys can pitch over there, and they got pinpoint control. A lot of times they overthrow them guys so much that their arms get tired. But when they get over here, these guys they can't believe they don't throw as much as they did over there. They throw every single day over there in Japan. The brand of baseball was good. It was solid. And I learned to watch how they coach, because I learned how to coach hitters because I was paying attention to more basic fundamentals and basic little things you had to do to be a good hitter. If you notice them, they're very mechanical. They hold it back up front end, then they drop, then they turn, boom, 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 boom. They're worried about little mechanical things that really make a big difference. The only reason they may not, hit the way they do over, like they did over there, because the pitching is a little bit tougher and they throw a little bit harder over here in the United States. But baseball was great in Japan. I loved it for the 2 years.
Mike, in 1981, you were selected for the All-Star team. and you had an opportunity to play in your hometown of Cleveland. You also scored the tying run. So what was that entire experience like for you?
Well, that was the greatest experience of my career, period. It was more greater than winning the World Series. That 1980 year, I had a great year in Pittsburgh. They finally gave me a chance to play after so many years in the minor leagues, and sitting on the bench in 79, getting my, just my experience there, playing with a great ball club in 79. So finally, Willie Stargell and Bill and John Milner got hurt early in the season against Montreal. I had to start, and I think I went like 3 or 4 for 5 and had like 2 home runs against Scott Sanderson. And they said, "Wow, we didn't know he could hit like that." I knew I could hit like that. They just never gave me a shot to play, enough. But they felt my defense wasn't as good as some of the other guys. But I knew I could hit. And if they put me out there long enough, my fielding was going to be adequate too, which they later found that out. So after the 4 for 5 game, they put me back in there again. I went 3 for 4, 2 for 4, 5. Come June, I was hitting 350 something. They said, "Wow." And I had enough at bats to qualify for the batting title and everything. But what happened is I ended up hitting 338. But as the season went on, Chuck Tanner used to take me out for defense. And that's the only, I think I was lacking 40 or 30 or 40 at bats from winning the batting title, because I hit 338, the year before that year in 80. So therefore, 81 came, we had a short season year. I think we had a lockout or something. So we didn't really play. And Dallas Green, the manager for the Phillies, because they won it in 81, in 80, they ended up picking me. He picked me as an extra outfielder, and I was just totally unequivocally elated that he picked me. The only All-Star team I made, I did in my hometown of Cleveland, Ohio. To me, that was the highest point of my career. I mean, that's the thing I remember more than anything else. Anything else.
I got a picture in my office of Dave Parker smoking the cigarette in that dugout there. I think it's a famous picture now, but
Oh yeah.
Obviously one of my favorites. You got any good Dave Parker stories in that 79 Pirates team? Was he the biggest character, or is it something we don't even know? Is there another person?
Let me tell you something. Dave Parker was the greatest teammate anybody could have in baseball. I mean, this man came to play baseball every single day. He was a gamer. He wanted to win more than anybody else in that clubhouse. I used to call him the Muhammad Ali of baseball. I mean, talk a lot of shit, talk shit to the reporters, talk shit to the fans. He just talked mess, and he can back every bit of it. He said, I think he won like 3 batting titles, 2 or 3 batting titles. I mean, he was strong. He was a great outfielder. He had a great arm. He ran the bases. He stole bases. I mean, the guy is 6'6", 6'7", weighed about 230, 240. I mean, he was all man. And he played the game harder than anybody I've ever been around. And he was very strong. To me, he should be a strong candidate, for, a Hall of Fame character. I don't know what his numbers were totally, but I know that he should be. I think he should be considered deeply for a Hall of Fame, or at least what do you call it when you don't get voted in? The writers can put you in. I think Dave Parker definitely, he was a Hall of Fame ball player. I don't care what nobody said. For a short time there, he was one of the best ball players in baseball, period. And he's not the only one smoking cigarettes. A lot of guys smoke cigarettes.
And more.
Earl Weaver was the other one. He called him six pack. When he go in there and their relievers come in there. I forgot the reliever's name with the curly hair. He used to come in there, and he said he smoked a pack of cigarettes every inning that dude was out there. I forgot who the relievers was, but we were just human beings. We went out there and played the game hard. We loved the game with a passion, and Dave Parker was the leader, as I said, on the field. Willie Stargell was the leader in the clubhouse.
So you had 10, I think I had it right, 10 years of summers in the minors. And I had a quote here from you. It says, "It's nice to know that so many teams wanted me, but not nice to know so many didn't." But I see your story as one of perseverance to stay with it that long. And then you finally get your shot. You turn into an all-star. You have a fantastic career, 293 career hitter, playing for some really good teams throughout your career. So during that 10-year time period before you really got your shot up in the majors, like what kept you going?
I just lost my wife, guys, August 15th. And I was married to my wife, Brenda, for 52 years. We were married.
Wow.
And she was the wind beneath my wings. She kept me pushing me, driving me. And people don't realize Brenda Easler was Brenda Johnson, Cliff Johnson's sister. And I met him, I met her when I was in the Houston organization, and we were married for 52 years. My wife helped motivate me, kept me going, kept driving me. And my father behind me, James Edward Easler, he kept pushing and driving. Not only did I had 10 summers in minor leagues, I had 10 summers in winter baseball also. I played 6 winters in Mexico, Los Mochis, Mexico. I played 3 winters in Maracaibo, Venezuela, and I played 1 winter in Panama. So I had 10 years of winter baseball. So I was actually summer and winter, I was playing for 10 years straight until I finally got my break in 1979. 1979 was the last year I went to winter ball of my career. And after that, I was just, I became a player in the big leagues. So I didn't have to go to winter ball anymore. But me going to Mexico and Venezuela, it taught me really how to become a complete hitter, how to hit breaking balls, how to use the whole field. It was it was hard. It was tough. But my wife, as I said, was with me, behind me. I had 3 girls, and I just wanted to play, and I just wasn't going to quit. I didn't care. I just knew that I could hit. I knew I could play with it. I've always felt that way. Even in high school, I felt that nothing could stop me. The only thing that could stop me was death. The only way I don't make it to the major leagues if I died. I hate to say it like that, but that's how driven I was to make it to the major leagues, and I finally did.
Oh, awesome. The hitman, Michael Easler. Thank you so much for coming on tonight. We appreciate that.
Well, I enjoyed it, Mike. I enjoyed you guys. Every one of your questions was excellent, super. I enjoy your knowledge of the game of baseball. And the thing about it is, it's just a great game, regardless of what they do now. And I look at the games and I just shake my head when I watch the hitters strike out and look at pitches and take pitches and don't move the runner over and managers not bunting in bunting situations. How can you put a guy at second base, nobody out, if you don't bunt him over? I mean, duh. That's just basic fundamental baseball. I'm not going to say your third or fourth hitter don't have to do it, but I'm talking about these other guys, leadoff hitter, second hitter, 7, 8, 9 hitter. They supposed to be bunting that guy to third base. I'm sorry. That's just the way the game should be played. But everybody's just playing for the long ball, playing for the big inning. So, hey, it is what it is. So I enjoy the game. I love watching the game. And right now, my focus is on teaching young kids how to play the game. I just had 2 first rounders that I helped get out of Las Vegas. For the Astros was Tyler Whitaker. He was number 1 pick for the Astros in 2021. And this year, 22 was Justin Crawford. His father was Carl Crawford, with the Devil Rays. And he was number 1 for the Phillies. So I just had 2 number 1 kids that I worked with for a long time to get, to sign major league contract, number 1. So I just enjoy teaching kids. And I got a few more coming up too. As long as God keep me alive, I'm going to keep coaching the basic fundamentals and how to hit the baseball the right way, using the whole field.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I'll remind everybody, make sure you hit like and subscribe. Keep watching, and we'll see y'all next time. Have a great night.